really enjoy this stuff. They are tuning in. And that says more about the nature of citizenship and what we like than the nature of media. Partisanship in the extreme, as you're seeing right now, as you saw before the midterm elections and certainly after. And this week has been very interesting to watch as the Democrats and the Republicans try to figure out if they're going to extend any olive branches or not. So they're all kind of giving mixed messages about cooperation, but then they'll go off and give another speech about we're going to take those other people down. So I think there's a lot of confusion on their part about how to play it and who's going first and what are the implications of that, especially for power in the 2012 election. Partisanship in the extreme, even if it doesn't represent where most Americans are, that most Americans are far more moderate than anything you see represented on cable television, is engaging to people, and so is some incivility. Nobody is forcing Glenn Beck, people who watch Glenn Beck or Keith Olbermann. So, my argument is that we have to hold a mirror up to ourselves as citizens and figure out why we are attracted to particular kinds of public discourse. Likely because there isn't much else on that's as entertaining. I mean, how many episodes of Mad Men can they produce? We need to watch something, or Glee. But it could be that we have become so lazy and shallow in a lot of ways that we kind of like people yelling at us and demanding our attention through antics that have a kind of circusy feel when it comes to political talk. Much depends on the journalist, the editor, the network. Some are clearly enabling incivility or civility, others aren't. We have very few models of real excellence in political discourse on television with regard to constructive policy debate. I think some of the Sunday talk shows, even if their viewership is pretty low, try to model this as best they can. The NewsHour on PBS still tries to stage debates of experts in ways that might influence issue debates. The problem is that for whatever reason, and you all are not the issue here, is that these models of debate that take a lot of patience, that take a lot of listening, are dull to a lot of people. And, as noted above when I was talking about Rod Hart's ideas, people are drawn to incivility because it is a flash of excitement in what can be a pretty boring news broadcast. So I guess, what it comes down to with the media is that if we, or they, since we're not in the media, this part is not our responsibility, can integrate more passionate debate into television news, we'll be a much better nation. But it has to be a passionate debate of a really constructive type, of a substantive type, not the name calling. Otherwise, it's just, it's not going to get us anywhere. There's nothing wrong with some incivility. It seems to be an inherent part of political debate. We can learn to recognize it better, to structure it better, to critique it, and I think we can do that through our educational institutions or through our demands that media do a better job integrating passionate debate that's also very substantive and very sophisticated. So, in closing, this is a cultural matter most of all, incivility. Do we really want to become a nation based on both civility and substantive argument? And if we want to do that, we've got to force a higher level of argument. We've got to toughen up at the same time. We have to learn to live with some incivility and even negativity, but not be blinded by it, and keep pressing for real substantive debate. It is possible. It's ideal. It would certainly be far more consistent with what the founders had in mind when they established the nation. And maybe it's why they could threaten each other with duels. They could mudsling. But somehow, at the same time, the very same time, create a real democracy, warts and all. So thanks again for listening. I know this is a lot of ideas at one time, and it's pretty dense, but I think it's important, and I think it's young people like you that are going to make this generational change toward a better public discourse. So thanks.
Thank you very much for your talk.
Sure.
I'm Hannah Sonnenstrass. I'm from Harvard College. And I wanted to ask you about negative advertising in particular. I know I'm going to get his name wrong. I think it's John Hickenlooper, who's now governor of Colorado, just won on Tuesday, ran a totally positive campaign. He said didn't run a single negative ad in the entire campaign. And I'm wondering whether, as much as it's attractive to us, in theory, I'm wondering whether half the problem with negative advertising is just collective action. That if taking a high road is a lot harder if all your opponents take the low road. And if we could make it somehow, in theory, such that everyone took the high road, I mean, would that be better? Or as you're saying, do we need just a little bit of instability to keep us going? Would an all high road world actually be better?
Yeah, I guess I just don't think the all high road world is possible. I mean, I do think there's something in us that likes a good fight, and that's why we're a nation that loves football and, athletics, and surprisingly, a nation that doesn't mind people getting hurt a little bit in those games. I mean, that's something that I think about all the time in relation to incivility. So I think you're right on the whole. If we had more positive campaigns like the one you mentioned, because at a certain point, the mudslinging, you're not learning anything at all. We'd be better off. But there's going to be a certain amount of negativity. I have one colleague at Vanderbilt, John Geer, who has written a book called In Defense of Negativity. And what he did is he looked at political advertising for the last few decades, I think, and looked at the content of the ads, and he finds that negative ads have more content than positive ones. And you think about the TV ads for candidates, like the positive ones have them with their family, and their dog galloping around, and it's a sunny day, and he's telling you about a better Colorado or a better Florida or whatever it is they're running for, a better America. The negative ads tend to focus on issues. They tend to be more issue-oriented. He voted yes on this. He did that. He did that. So at least it gets actual concrete policy out into the world for people to say, I wonder if he really did vote on that horrible legislation. So, again, needs some kind of balance. But I think that's been a problem with the more positive ads is they get really fluffy.